Hello and welcome to the Afterward of the reading of Wading into War. Did you like it? I hope so. I really like that book. I'm sure it's probably got some problems, but everyone has a first book and everyone has to start somewhere and improve along the way. So a few things I was going to touch base on. Lessons learned, I guess you could say, from doing this video. During this, so I'm recording this in April of 2020, and so this is during the coronavirus quarantine, stay-at-home time. So there's been a lot of authors and actors and comedians who have started to just bootstrap it with these video presentations, whether it's doing things like I did, which is, read chapters or a whole book, or doing a show, or just like Patrick Stewart's doing, he's reading a sonnet a day from William Shakespeare. And I don't know about you, but I can't wait for that every single day. So that's why I kind of started to do this, in addition to the anniversary of the events of the book being April 22nd, 1940, and this book went live on April 22nd, 2020. So things that I have learned in the process of doing these read-alongs. I don't mind using the paper copy. I mean, I don't know if you mind it or not. It was easy for me to see it and read it, but when I do decide to make an official audiobook, I'm going to definitely have an electronic copy, so there's no page flips and no squishies and stuff like that. I realized when I was reading it that there were in fact 19 chapters, not 18, which is what I said in the introduction, but hey, I forgot, even though it's my own book. I also made a point to see that my collar in the other videos was kind of curled up, and it looked kind of like a dork, so I have to make sure that every time I do a video that my collar is laid down and my shirt is as unwrinkled as possible. So just visual presentation. Interestingly enough, again, I didn't make any difference to my bookshelf here behind me. So I can imagine if there are some viewers out there who may be looking at all my books and going, "What book is that? What book is that?" I watch Stephen Colbert's show every evening, at least his monologue part, and he is also in front of a bookshelf. And history dork that I am, I can actually recognize the books from just the spine or a sliver of the cover. But I think the sound as well. I'm still learning how to do video edit. I don't have a good piece of software for that yet, so I'm just learning. Right now I'm using YouTube's built-in editing software. So sure, if you have any comments on what I could do better, just please let me know, because again, this is a learning process for me, but it's enjoyable, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. The reading of Wading into War. It's a fun book. Again, so now that you've met the characters, so you know how Ben Wade started. He was just the guy at the front door knocking on the door, and then bullets come out. So that was that's how he came up. And I as I went along the story of this first book, I just would throw in little references here and there, like his gun he carries is his father's gun. Part of the creative process when you do write stories like this is sometimes it's fun just to write them and not plan ahead and just see where the story leads. So that was one of the aspects of it. His car, I had to research the car, and I had to research his best friend, Gordon Gardner. Now, Gordon Gardner, he is interesting. I think a lot of authors, maybe every author, will put parts of themselves in certain characters, but Gordon Gardner, he's a reporter, he's a writer. So therefore, of course, I see part of myself in him. Not everything. I can't remember exactly how I came up with the name, but Gardner, the last name, is probably inspired by Earl Stanley Gardner, who would be the creator of Perry Mason and the Cool and Lamb novels. I like Earl Stanley Gardner's stories and writing quite a bit, so that's probably where the last name I came up with, and I don't know why, but I'm just a big fan of alliterative words and names. So Gordon Gardner, I wanted a word that can be abbreviated like Gordy or Gordo. I don't think that happened in Wading into War, so maybe it happened in one of the future books. But so Gordon was fun to write because he is the passionate, the truth teller, as you can see from the how he relates to the book. The third character, so Lillian Saxton. Now, every PI story needs the nice femme fatale, not nice, needs the femme fatale to hire the detective to find or do something. So at the beginning of this story, I just needed a female character who, sorry about that, a female character who needed to hire Wade. He needed to have someone to do the work for. So I just came up with Lillian Saxton. Lillian, that would be my maternal grandmother's first name. So I'm pretty sure that my brain back in 2013 came up with Lillian on its own. Saxton, no clue. I use a piece of software called Scrivener for writing, and one of the coolest features it has is a name generator. Now, in 2020 and moving forward, there are lots of online name generators that you can use. They're everywhere. So more than likely, Saxton came out of the name generator. So again, when I came up with Lillian Saxton, she was just a character who needed to hire Wade. In fact, the one scene, and I forgot what chapter it is, where she's the one who shoots the guy. Again, that was just a out of the blue thing going, wow. And then only later, when I started thinking about the characters of the book, she went in a very different direction. So those are my three characters. Oscar Berman, he would be the police captain. Needed him because what is a private investigator story without a police captain or a sergeant or a lieutenant always on his ass? That's just the way a lot of these things work. The man with the badge doesn't always like the man who doesn't carry a badge. Now, Berman is referenced in future books with featuring Wade, but not all of those are published yet. There are a couple of them, though. Donnelly is one I just came up with. He is, I mean, let's be honest, he's kind of a typical Army soldier. You know, it's cut to the chase and, you know, working through that. So it's, you know, it's just a nice standard side character. The Houston topics. Now, I'm a native Houstonian. I love my town. I love the history of my town, and I'm often frustrated when, you know, modern decisions are made that tear down our history. So, so most of the details that I put in the book, I had to research. I have a few books on my own in my bookshelf in my office, and I did a lot of internet research. So, you know, like with the Rice Hotel, I had to figure out how it looked back in 1940 and found some pictures. In fact, I believe, if I remember correctly, the night before President John Kennedy flew to Dallas on the 22nd of November 1963, he stayed in the Rice Hotel. So there's a little bit of history involved there. So as you can see with my my Lyndon Johnson books here, history is my major. I got a graduate degree and a bachelor's degree in history. Love history. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I set these stories back in time, because I get to tell historical stories and you know, just impart a little bit of historical knowledge. So yes, the Rice Hotel, the theater, that was there. I found a picture of the theater complete with its long stories tall sign, and I had to figure out what movie was actually being shown in April of 1940, so I had to do some research for that. So I'm not sure if that one came up in this movie or this book or not. But anyway, I love doing my historical research. One of the things I can't find yet, I cannot find a 1940 era roadmap. I found a 1942 and I found in 1937. So I kind of have to extrapolate between the two things and say, well, I think this was here, maybe it wasn't. But anyway, so that would be Wading into War, my first story, written in May of 2013. It was published February 18th, 2015. It was my first published book. Part of my, I formed a company called Quadrant Fiction Studio. Wading into War was my first published book, so it's always going to be special. And I love the character. I love the character of Ben Wade. In fact, I have written 3 novels and one short story. Short story is not finished yet. It's actually going to be another novella. So speaking of that, where is the next step for Benjamin Wade? Well, the next step directly for Benjamin Wade is in the direct sequel called All Chickens Must Die. Now, this again is the first edition copy with an artwork, and as you can see, it's still formed more like the old-fashioned pulp fiction books that I liked a lot. That's now since gone away. What we now have is the one that looks a lot like what you see now on my website. Again, it's a common look and feel. The only difference would be the color. I've decided, at least at this stage, to have the title and the subtitle be a different color, and there's a red hue over these pictures. I don't know if you can see it or not, but so this has been Wade's second full-length and published story. It is longer than a novella this time, and this one introduces you to his secretary. Now I'm going to let you, I'll read a chapter of this on its own, but All Chickens Must Die, that is Benjamin Wade's second story. Third one will be coming out later this year, I suspect, and also when I finish writing the short story, which I'm really enjoying, I'll get that published as well. One of the things that we authors are told to do is that when we create a character in a series, we should keep the series consistent. That is, one character, one series, go to town. With Benjamin Wade, I do have a second story. But I loved Gordon Gardner a lot. And so I ended up writing a Gordon Gardner story. It's called The Phantom Automobiles. This is actually the second book published in my career. Again, this is my first and original cover. Same graphic designer helped me out here. But I liked Gardner so much that I said, you know, that guy needs to star in his own story. And so I wrote a book called The Phantom Automobiles, in which he is the star of his own story. This one is the latest and greatest version of this cover. I like this story quite a bit. Gordon, when he stars in his own story, I made the decision that, like for Wading into War, Gordon is a co-star. Ben Wade is the star. On Gordon's starring role in Phantom Automobiles, Ben Wade makes an appearance, but as a co-star. He kind of makes a cameo. So in every book I've written so far, the characters intermingle back and forth. Whether or not that's a good strategy for book selling, I don't know. It is a good strategy for entertaining myself, which, if any author will tell you, the very first reader is the author himself. And if you're not entertaining yourself, then why even bother writing a book, right? Phantom Automobiles has got a great concept too, which I will talk about more when I do an intro for Phantom Automobiles at a future date. But it introduces a character, Gordon's co-star, main co-star. She is a photographer, and she is whip smart and definitely his equal. So I very much enjoyed writing her. The third cast member from Wading into War who got their book is Lillian Saxton. Now, I will talk more about her book when I get to it in particular, but she got a starring role in a book called Ulterior Objectives. This is Lillian's very first solo book on her own. We authors are not supposed to have favorite books, but I gotta tell you, so far in my life, this is my favorite book. Everything came together. The book came together. Loved developing Lillian as a main character. Love this book a lot. Love the character, and just basically can't wait to write more stories. You'll hear more about Lillian Saxton in a few weeks, because just like we've hit the 80th anniversary of the events of Wading into War, the 80th anniversary of the events of this book will also take place in the next couple of weeks. In fact, since you've read the last chapter of Wading into War, the first chapter of this book takes place on the exact same scene, but from Lillian's point of view. So, again, I'm supposed to sell books, I'm supposed to write the same character and just over and over. I like to entertain myself, and I had a blast writing every book I've written so far. I've always had a blast. I don't write these books just to try to sell them. I mean, yeah, I want to sell them, but I want to entertain myself. Oh, you want Lillian's new cover? Here is Lillian's new cover. There it is. So it's got the original cover down below, and then a stock photo right there. I'll do a video on how I create stories like this, and that way you can learn a little bit of the process. Okay, what more is there to say about Wading into War? Again, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed me reading it. I'm not a professional reader. I realize I stumbled over a few words, but as part of the bootstrapping philosophy that I'm using right now to date, I'm just going with the flow. It's a lot of times when I am a listener or a viewer of a podcast or a YouTube video, and I don't care that people stumble over words or an author messes up a name. It's just part of what makes it more human. It's not perfect. I will get better. Trust me on that. I will definitely get better. But that's where we are in April of 2020. Again, I hope you enjoyed. Hang on. I hope you enjoyed my reading of Wading into War. I very much enjoyed reading it to you. And I guess that's it for this Afterward video. Stay tuned for future videos from my channel. Subscribe. There will be links in the show notes. And I'll also visit my website. So my website's very easy. It is scottdennisparker.com. And when you're there, you will be able to see not only the books that I've talked about here, but you'll also get to see the westerns I write. I have short stories and I have novels. In fact, there's if Ulterior Objectives is my favorite book of all time, Empty Coffins is probably my favorite western I've written, because it features one of my two favorite characters, which is Calvin Carter. But that, again, is a different video. So, this will be me, Scott Dennis Parker, signing off for Wading into War, and I'll catch you again soon. Goodbye.